It's quiet out here. Thursday morning, November 1st, 11:01. I've been thinking about this for days now, wondering exactly what I'm going to say. I'm better at talking than I am at typing. And I remind myself that, not that I'm a great philosopher. Who knows? Maybe. Probably not. But I do know there's a lot of things in my head that I believe need to be expressed. Was wondering what my first topic was going to be, because what this is actually a prologue or preface to what I intend to be a video book of philosophy, in the nature of Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra, which, if you read the book, it's just basically a series of chapters where he explores different topics. I'm very topical. Well, this first one, after a lot of careful consideration over the last few days, I'm going to make this one about fear. It's actually because I started this a few minutes ago. Plan to do it while the sun is rising. The sun's coming up now. It's going to get brighter. I actually think a lot of things in the world are going to get brighter. It's something that I'm just sensing. See a lot of animosity that goes with it, but that's just the nature of the universe. That's just the balance. Things have to balance. So, for everything that's good, there's stuff that's going to be evil. It seems like it's a strange, out of balance kind of thing. My entire life, it felt like there was a minority of good and a preponderance of evil. And I liken that to the material world. People find, their quality of life, their meaning in life is not about what they do or what they feel. It's about what they have. It's about their stuff. And stuff is good, stuff actually helps us experience things that aren't stuff. There's good movies, there's good music, there's great movies, great music, there's great books. I don't put books in the class of material. They're definitely more ethereal. Well, if you read the right ones, some of them are terrible. B.F. Skinner, don't agree with that guy at all. Marx either. Because collectivism breeds lack of thought. Collectivism breeds, a whole bunch of people that just, agree with an individual that sounds right, because life is unfair. The world's unfair. People are unfair. And that gets me back to fear. Unfortunately, this is going to be mostly about myself and my own perceptions. And I want to talk about fear. My own personal fears. I don't fear the government. I don't fear religion. I don't fear God. I've been through those things. But I got past them. I learned past them. I had to cultivate my own intelligence, my own spiritual existence. The things that I fear saying the wrong thing. I fear shunning people from my life. I fear not being understood. I fear evil. in its purest sense. And I think because I've explored it, because I've studied it, I've also studied plenty of good. Hopefully I've studied more good than evil. And, that's what I'll express here. People fear different things. When I was in school, I began to feel that the universe was out to get me. Feared God was out to get me. Didn't quite understand. Because from the ages of 9 to 16, my teeth literally rotted out of my head. Had a mouthful of cavities. Really had a lot of time to study and read. Turned out to be an A+ student in a Catholic school. 8 years. And it was mostly because I didn't have a lot of friends. I was an ugly kid. When you open up your mouth and you smile, excuse me. And there's nothing but cavities. And you find a mechanism like cushion grip, thermoplastic denture adhesive that you can form and shape to cover the the 4 front teeth that you got, and your top set of teeth that's just little black nubs. But you take that cushion grip and you put it up on there. And then you have to deal with other kids going, "Hey, why you got gum on your teeth?" And then the bullies, the bullies always came around, and I realize now I'm going to be 56 in a little over a month. So it's been 50 years since I wrote my first poem, which I wrote from my mom. Don't know why. I still write poetry. But the bullies always came around. Funny thing is, I never feared violence. Violence was never a fear of mine. And I hazard to say that in my youth I was violent, but it was always defensive violence. I was never the bully. Never the bully because the universe didn't allow me to be the bully. But I didn't get picked on because of my teeth. Well, I didn't get picked on because I was an ugly kid. Might be why I didn't have a whole lot of friends. But I got picked on because I was an A+ student. Had an English teacher, Miss Charette. She used to call me Infallible David. And I remember the first time she said that. Said it to the whole class. Asked a question of the class. A few hands went up. And a couple people, they tried to answer the question, but they were wrong. Couldn't help it. They just didn't study enough. They weren't paying attention. And she hollered out. Well, she didn't holler. But she said, "Let's go to Infallible David," because my hand was up. And I was like, because I liked having the answer. It's a joyful feeling for me to have an answer, But I learned early that, I don't have all the answers. Nobody does. Nobody has all the answers. We only find the right answers when we collaborate, when we cooperate, when we communicate. So I've kind of been shaped by my fears. And the bullies came around. And I hate bullying. It's just, it's a sign of insecurity. I mean, bullies simply do what they do and they say what they say just to, minimize other people, to put other people down, to make themselves feel better. And I don't know. I mean, it seems like empty joy to me, if it's any joy at all. But I never met the same bully twice. I mean, there was one guy in at St. Pat's that, used to verbally bully me a lot. But he stopped when I ultimately fought back. And he actually had 3 other guys that were his friends that helped him beat the crap out of me. Held me down in the schoolyard after school. He had actually come by my desk when it was desk cleaning day. And he knocked some papers off my desk and he said, "Oh, well, what are you going to do about that, Dave Decay?" Yeah, Dave Decay. Yeah, that was a favorite for him. You know, and then other bullies came around sometimes, and it was, you know, Rotten Mouth and things like that. But, you know, I called him out. I said, "You know what? It's about time. It's about time." Called him out. Met him in the schoolyard out after school. And him and his three buddies actually held me down. One guy was holding my legs down. The other two guys were holding my arms down. He was sitting on my stomach, just punching me in the face. Multiple times. I was crying. I think I was maybe 12, 13 years old. I think it was 7th grade. 6th or 7th grade. And beat the crap out of me. But I fought back. I didn't just lay there. I mean, I was struggling. I eventually, you know, kind of threw them off me, you know, and they hauled ass. They had enough, I guess. I was crying. I was alone. They hauled ass. And I actually started walking to the boys' club like I did every day, because that's what we did. We went to the boys' club and spent a couple hours there before Dad picked us up when he got off of work. Well, I got halfway up the street, off campus, away from the church. Finally stopped crying. And I had a thought, so I turned around, walked all the way back, and went to the convent. Oh, I failed to mention, it was my first use of real profanity. Because while I was crying, you know, it was F this, F that, God damn you, you know, you bastards. And I'm a pretty loud guy. I mean, I'm talking quiet now, but I'm a pretty loud guy. I was even loud as a child. I mean, you probably could have heard me for blocks. I mean, who knows what people thought. I mean, I didn't think about it at the time, but I was pretty loud. But halfway up the street, I realized that the sisters, the nuns, probably heard me and felt like I probably offended them. So I turned around, went back, went to the convent, went into the convent. One of the sisters came to the door, came to the lobby, saw me, could tell I'd been crying. And I told her I needed to speak to Sister Aloysius, who was the principal at the time. So Sister Aloysius came down, sat with me in the lobby, and I apologized. I said, "Sorry, sister. I used some words I should not have used. I was very loud, but I was getting beat up." And she, of course, patted me on the head, said, "It's okay, young man. God be with you." And I went on my way, went ahead and went to the boys' club. That whole thing had an impact on my life. Now, like I said, I never met the same bully twice, because, you know, even in public school, there was a couple that wanted to try me, because I was still a smart kid. And, now I hate to say it, but people that are stupid are pretty insecure. Because really, most everything in life is bearable. Some things aren't. But it takes courage, determination to get past things. Because you definitely don't get over them. Especially the bad things. You can only learn lessons and get past them. And hopefully those lessons help you to make better choices. I never met the same bully twice. I never got picked on by the same bully twice physically, violently. And that was simply because I fought back. Because I knew, deep in my heart, that if this person's going to throw a punch, or throw me down on the ground or shove me, be an asshole, I wasn't the only one that's going to get hurt. So I throw punches too. I shove back. I push back. I fought back. Because that's what you got to do with a bully. You know, no government intrusion or clerical intrusion or well, any kind of intrusion. I mean, there's nobody that's going to take care of you better than you can take care of yourself. That's a fact. That's why I get a little upset when people want to change legislation or they want to change rules in the school or I mean, they want to officiate. They want to adjudicate. They want to control. But we're all individuals. And there's no good control for everybody that works for everybody. So I learned early. I learned very young that sometimes life requires fighting back. That's why oftentimes if you ever had a conversation with me about bullying, I'll tell you straight up that the first thing, if you got a kid that's being bullied, teach him to fight. Put him in a martial arts class. Or, teach him yourself, Dad. If you have a dad, kids that don't have a dad, that sucks. And mothers, they don't really have a mind to fight back. They're nurturing, they're loving, they're caring. The better ones. So, Irie. He's being a bully. That squirrel, I think the squirrel's actually messing with him. Hey! He's a good dog, though. But yeah, that's where I'm at with bullying. I think parents should, and if, I like to think that there's uncles, friends of women, mothers, that might step in and help teach their kids to push back, to fight back, to not take the crap that the world wants to throw at them, that evil people want to throw at them. And sometimes I have to, in my heart, I forgive the bullies because they don't have a proper understanding of what they're doing. They don't really even know. They don't know the pain that they're causing to themselves. Not just to the kid they're bullying, but to themselves. They're destroying their own spirit when they do this. But once you fight a bully back the first time, once they fully, completely understand that the person they're bullying is not the only one that is going to get hurt, they stop. Preferably, they stop bullying everybody. Because sometimes a bully is just a bully in spirit, and they just stay that way. Just mean people. Not enough kindness in the world. That's a fact. Be nice if there was more love in the world. Be nice if more people understood what real love is. Love is understanding. Love is forgiveness. Love is pain. Pain teaches us. Pain helps us understand. We have to accept the pains. We have to take them into our heart and into our mind. And sometimes you have to study the pain. Because sometimes you can't learn the lesson from the pain unless you study it. And again, I'm speaking for myself, but when my dad died, I was 26 years old. 1989. That was another lesson. But I'm going to have to turn back. I'm going to have to turn back a little bit. Because I actually have two stories to tell this about myself and what I feel is a proper perspective. When I was married the first time, I was 21 years old. And I got married because basically I had two really big men, her dad and my dad, that kind of looked down to me. and told me, they didn't look down at me, they were looking down to me. And I believe both of them were pretty righteous men. But both of them told me when she got pregnant, she was 17 years old. But when she got pregnant, I had these two very big men telling me that I should do the right thing. And I agreed. Because, like I said, they were a couple of righteous dudes. So we got married. And it was okay. I mean, as okay as, a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old getting married could be. About 3 months later, she miscarried. Baby she was carrying died. That sucked. Very painful. And unfortunately, I have this tendency to go where people say I'm not supposed to go. I was in the lobby waiting while she was back in the room in the hospital. She'd already lost the baby, and I was chomping at the bit to get in there to see her, see what was going on, and to be present. It's another thing I think is important, is to be present. So I just pushed my way through the doors. I didn't pay any attention to do not enter. Went back, actually poked my head in a couple of doors, but I got lucky and I found the one that she was in. So I went in. She was the only one in the room. Doctors and nurses had gone to another room for some reason. I have no idea why. But they weren't in there. She was laying on the doctor bed. But the first thing I saw when I came through the door was they actually had the fetus in a tin bowl. And it was a boy. It was big enough, had enough features that I could tell immediately it was a boy. I always wanted a boy. Not that I don't love my daughter, because she is a beautiful creature, and I am so glad that she was born. And she's a daughter. I love that. But I walked in the door, saw the bloody fetus in a tin pan. My heart sank. I walked over to her, and I actually don't remember what I did at that point. I think I maybe held her hand, and maybe we cried together. That's what I'd like to think. That's what I'd like to remember. That's as far as I'll go with that story. But what it prompted me to do, which is my own nature, I spent 2 days in the library finding every book I could that had explanation and discourse on miscarriage and abortion, and discovered that it takes anywhere between 1 to 2 years for a woman to get past that. It's a terrible thing. It makes me glad I'm not a woman, because it's just fucking awful. Excuse my... It was the only adjective I could use. So the consensus was it takes a year, 2 years to, for a woman to get over that. It's awful. Brings me sadness when I think about it. So even though the marriage was a forced marriage, universally forced, patriarchally forced, it wasn't a good marriage. It was okay because we were friends, but we really didn't love each other. And that's fair. Still love her because I love everybody. But it wasn't that kind of love that maintains a marriage. But regardless of that, I knew I would be an asshole if I ran off immediately. And I really been conscious of not wanting to be an asshole my whole life. I like to be liked. It's a joy to be liked. It's a joy to bring light into other people's lives. And that's a good thing. So we stayed together for another 1.5 years, and then we actually divorced and parted as friends. I'd like to think we're still friends. I've run into her recently, and I believe we're still friends. And that's a wonderful thing. But my point is, my first reaction was to spend a couple days in the library and to learn about this. Because there's no way I would have had a proper understanding if I didn't, and I ran the risk, back to my fears, I ran the risk of being an asshole, of saying the wrong thing, of doing the wrong thing, by humanity, by somebody else that's in this world, somebody else that has a mind and a heart and a soul and a spirit, something that I don't want to damage, ever. I don't want to hurt anybody, ever. Unless they're a bully and they, absolutely insist on me fighting back and pushing back. So, therefore, my point, I studied it. I had to. Sometimes I think this is, I've always felt I had a calling. Never really knew what it was, what I was being set up for. Maybe this is it. Maybe I'm supposed to tell some stories. Maybe help people understand a little bit better. I hope so. It'd be nice to help other people gain some understanding, improve their spirit, brighten their soul. Well, back to my dad. I was 26 years old when my dad died. While my dad was in the hospital, I spent 3 days at the library. Now, mind you, we didn't have no internet. I mean, I could do that. I have done this kind of study over and over again with grand efficiency since the coming of the internet. And I'm a technician, pretty good at fixing stuff, especially if it's technological, because I can study it. If I don't know the answer, if I don't know what the fix is, I look for it. Because there's a pretty good chance that somebody's experienced it already, and it's there to help me. And it's only fair to myself to let them help me, so I can help somebody else. It's a chain of help. It's a chain of love. I spent 3 days in the hospital, not 3 days in the hospital. My dad was in the hospital for like 3 weeks. Had brain surgery. He had 4 brain tumors. He had 3 of them removed. One of them was too close to the cerebral cortex, could not be removed, so they attempted radiation and chemotherapy. He went bald, turned into a 5-year-old child, throwing temper tantrums, thought God was giving him the highlight numbers, bought himself a G.I. Joe stealth bomber for Christmas. And that was a fun Christmas. It's a real trial when your dad, who you really kind of feared, well respected now by myself, because I can look back and I can really see who my dad was. I mean, hell, I'm 4 years older than he was when he died now. But I spent 3 days in the library studying cancer, reading everything I could about cancer. Didn't know until years later about chemical components, especially aspartame, that actually caused brain tumors in the test rats. It caused brain tumors in test rats. The FDA actually didn't approve aspartame for use in the food supply until, they refused it 9 times. 9 times, and that's because of the lab studies. Because it consistently created brain tumors in the rats. There was no books, no literature on that when I was in the library studying this stuff. But I did read a lot about cancer. A lot of what they believed causes cancer. a lot of what happens after cancer, a lot of the available treatments for cancer. And I've become pretty well versed on cancer when I was exactly half my dad's age. The knowledge really didn't stop what happened. He still died. He died on the 11th of February. He was in the hospital just before Thanksgiving. We had to make a choice. The doctor let us make a choice as a family. Dad was included. And we talked about whether we wanted to have the surgery the day before Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving. We chose the day after Thanksgiving because we actually had Thanksgiving dinner in the lobby at St. Joseph's Hospital. Brought in the turkey and the stuffing and the cranberry sauce and the whole 9 yards. Actually brought in my guitar, and I actually had a song that I wrote for my dad. I still remember the song. I've actually got it recorded somewhere. Played it in the hospital to my dad. A couple of us actually teared up, cried. It's kind of a touching song. I like it. I love my dad. Strange holiday season. Some of you know me. I don't like the holidays. For different reasons. I'll probably have another talk on the holidays as part of this series that I'm trying to do. Because I can't type. I can talk though. Went through Christmas. Dad turned into a 5-year-old. 240-pound man. Respectable individual. Workaholic. Took care of his family very well. He died on February 11th. We actually had his service on Valentine's Day. But at the end of it, I knew a whole lot more about cancer than I never knew. Which was a good thing. I still have that knowledge. I was 26 years old. That was 30 years ago. I still know more about cancer than some doctors. And that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. I'll probably do a talk about crazy too. A lot of different forms of crazy. But I've heard told, if you think you're crazy, you're probably not. And people that are crazy don't know it. I can testify to that. Because just a couple years ago, I ended taking care of my mom for 3 years, and she had dementia. When I found out she had dementia, I studied it. I had to go back to Dayton, Ohio, and go get her and bring her home because she had 3 granddaughters here. Sorry. 3 granddaughters here. So that's what I did. And she had times when she was crazy. She didn't know it. But it was still a labor of love. And it's basically because my whole life I've always done what had to be done. With that, maybe you got something out of it. I think I did. Y'all have a wonderful day.